When I look at the actual productivity gains that can be realized from utilizing Gen AI in specific environments, again, the use cases and environments that I live in, it has tremendous capacity. Tremendous capacity. It actually has the potential to deliver even enhanced ROI to the customer set utilizing this technology. So that's point one. Point two, we are also seeing that it actually expands the TAM of certain of the businesses. In some cases, i.e., it now creates a product that they otherwise could not offer, or in an expansion of a market that they otherwise could not reach. Now, the question is, do those markets have the capacity, the capability of paying? I'll call it the fair share of economic rent. That's to be determined. So it's hard to say where are you in the hype cycle because they say, wait, this is great potential, but can they afford it? Can a customer actually afford what it takes to get this utility, even though it has an ROI? That is going to take some time to play out in my mind. With all that said, I will say that there are very few technologies that I have seen that have that sort of enhancement in the ROI for the products that they can. Just remember, I actually think it's going to be the companies that have stuff that they can apply Gen AI to that have the potential to capture the vast majority of the economic rent. Now, if you don't have something to apply it to, you've now got to think about how do you either create a new market or disintermediate somebody who's already in that market. And if people haven't created the sovereignty and dominion of the data, it has a higher likelihood of disintermediating that market. If they own that data or they own the use case of it, and the industry participants understand that they are better off with trusted providers of Gen AI solutions who have been managing their data and keeping their data safe for decades in many cases, they'll capture the vast majority of the economic rent long term. All of these cycles, as you know, occur. There's this massive, ebullience early on. At some point in time, the realization comes to, wait a minute, it's not all that we say, oh, I don't need all of that. I just need this portion of it applied to my business. Those who sit at the highest level in the horizontal layers, I'm sure they're going to want to boil the ocean in many cases, but they're going to figure out there's going to be certain lakes that they can't boil, right? Because they actually don't have the construct and the data sets to boil those lakes. But there may be enough of the, call it the ocean in that case, that will satisfy, their ambitions. But that's how I think this is going to play out. I don't know if we're early in the hype cycle. It truly has been hyped up, but when I look at the productivity of it, it is a very productive tool. And the key is going to be the utilization of these tools applied to systems and infrastructures and ecosystems that currently exist that ultimately will yield to economic value for shareholders.
Look, Robert, we at Moonfair, I couldn't agree more. We are in the same camp. And we believe it's really an enormous revolution that is still far ahead of us. You're closing right now, or you're in the closing of your eighth flagship fund, which I believe will be your largest one to date. And I'm happy to say that Moonfair also has been part of this fundraise. Now, talking about how to capture from an individual investor perspective the enormous value creation that has happening and will be enabled by AI. Some people we talk to tell us, hey, I'm playing the Magnificent Seven. Yeah, I've been doing a great living and they are going up and up and up. Why should I invest into a private equity fund that focuses on AI? So let's make the case for how best to capture the value creation from an investor standpoint. Is it through public markets? Is it sufficient through public markets, or would you agree that there is no way to get around private markets investing?
Yeah, I think, it's important to remember that still about 97% of software companies are private. And, the vast majority of investors and consumers don't really know that because, people don't necessarily talk about the enterprise software, which makes up the bulk of the marketplaces are private companies. And so, being an investor, in Vista and firms like ours that are actually focused on the private markets, I think is an essential part participating in ultimately this overall industry. Like I said, those who actually have stuff, in this case software or companies that they can apply Gen AI to, will reap the benefits longer term more than just playing what I'll call the cycles of the, you call it the, the early tool providers of these solution sets. There will be a new equilibrium that occurs. And again, as you talked about, sure, the first wave will come and people are, wow, and I'm going to get in the hardware and going to some of the infrastructure providers and great. But at some point in time, there's going to be that realization that, there's overcapacity for what is the actual demand in these markets, because in some cases you actually don't need these large scale LLMs to solve the problems of specific businesses and industries, and you need something that's actually sized appropriately at the proper cost and with the right level of utility, and most importantly, the right data and workflows around those data to actually deliver high value solution sets to that industry. And that ultimately will be the equilibrium that occurs, and each of those industries and companies in those industries will find that equilibrium as they create and get more utility of utilizing these solution sets.